Hello, my darklings. I have a little friend. She wants to be with us, apparently. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Neo. How are you guys? Hello, Chaos. How are you? Welcome, my darkling. Welcome, welcome. I say it should be on. Let's bring this in. I couldn't bring it in because she was on my lap, so. Wait. Okay. Hello, Brendan. How are you, my darkling? Yes, it is I. Tis I. Tis I. Tis I. How is everyone doing this beautiful evening? By the way, how is my voice? Can you hear me alright? Is this a good ASMR, like, soft whisper voice? Because I'm going to be reading Edgar Allan Poe today. Oh, nice, Neo. Hello, Kirby. How are you? Welcome, my darkling. You doing well? Good, I'm glad. How are you? I am great. It has been a very, very long, busy day, but we're here. I made it. You're tired. Oh no, make sure to rest, please. Please rest. Hello, V8. Welcome, my new darkling. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Definitely, you sound amazing. Good. Okay, perfect. I wanted a nice, calming voice for reading today. We have our 2 goals. So right here is our VIP most devoted darklings. So this, you just hit the join button and you get badges, emojis, and shoutouts at the beginning and end of my streams, as you guys saw. And then this one right here, once we reach the goal, which is $50, I will do Cyberpunk Vampire ASMR stream. Super excited. This will be good. Thank you, Neo. Thank you, Brandon. Yes, Edgar Allan Poe. I'm glad you're fine, V8. I am great. Thank you so much for asking. I'm actually quite thirsty though, so let's drink some water. Hydrate, my darklings. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Yes, Edgar Allan Poe. I need that. Alright. We're gonna pick one I haven't read yet. I got you, Cass. Hopefully this will help you relax a little bit so you can go to sleep. Yeah, 1 a.m. I knew what you meant. No worries. 1 a.m. is quite late. Hello, Aiden. How are you? Welcome, my darkling. Welcome, welcome. Ira, hello. Leonard, hello. Welcome, Ira, and welcome, Leonard. How are both of you? We're doing Edgar Allan Poe today. Hello, Lloyd. Welcome, my darkling. How are you? Looking great. Thank you. Jimmy, hello. Welcome, my darkling. How are you? Looking forward to my new ASMR. Thank you. I'm so excited for Freak Show. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. It's gonna be so good. So good. I am looking particularly pale today, and I'm kind of liking it. Like a pretty moon glow. Thank you, Neo. Alright, so trying to see which ones we haven't read yet. I would like to do a tale of mystery and horror. Mystery and horror, let's see. I think, let's see, the Mask of the Red Death. That sounds very nice, doesn't it? Red Death. Yes, can you give me a kiss? Aw, I'll do that. How about that? Hello, Flame. Hello. I am feeling amazing today. I had a very, very rough day. I appreciate you guys understanding me not streaming on Twitch. At least I made it here today, and we're going to make it to Twitch after this. That's the plan. Thank you, Kirby. Will you bite me? Yes, of course. I can bite you and turn you my pet. Yes, Edgar Allan Poe. Hello, Musty. Mwah. Welcome, my darling. How are you? Thank you, Brandon. Yes, mystery and horror. Oh, hello. Hello, Monochrome. That's okay, I understand. Welcome, my darling. How are you? And I hope the work goes well for you. Logan, hello. Welcome, my darling. How are you? Yes, Victoria's Freak Show will be coming September 5th. I'm very excited. We had a little bit of a snafu, but I'm working on fixing it, and it should be okay. Why, thank you, Aiden. Hi, hello, Alexandre. Welcome, my darling. How are you? Welcome, welcome. All right, so we're going to do the Mask of the Red Death, which is on page 247. 247, 247, 247, 247, we're almost there, 243, 245, 247. Will you do an ASMR? Yes, Leonard, I do plan to do a wedding ASMR at some point. I'm glad you're good. I'm fantastic. Fantastic, Logan. Thank you, Brandon. Really, Ira, I have not read it or seen the movie. At least I don't think that I have, so I'm actually excited for this one. Good, I'm glad, Monochrome, and you too. It has been a while since I read on stream, so I thought today would be absolutely divine. And I think this one, let's see, how long? It's not that long. This is actually a pretty short one in comparison to some of the other ones we've read. Will you do it on October? Probably not October, but sometime in the future I will do a wedding ASMR for sure. If you would like your own custom ASMR, like a wedding ASMR, please email me at vickysyphemore@gmail.com and we can talk about all the pricing and everything that you would like, and if you'd like to donate to the community or if you'd like to keep it for yourself. I do so many custom ASMRs and I would love to do a wedding one. Aiden, thank you so much. Cover the camera lens with your hair? Sure. Why not? We can do this for a second and then I'll read the book. I've never done this before. This is a new one. Thank you for the $1.99. There you are. Yes, a wedding ASMR I think would be quite fun. Pit in the Pendulum. Yes, the Pit in the Pendulum was very, very, very long. Alright, here we go. Mask of the Red Death. Let me adjust my chair so I'm not sitting on the edge of it, like about to fall off. Alright, here we are, my darklings. The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal, the redness and the horror of blood. There were sharp pains and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding at the pores with dissolution. The scarlet stains upon the body, and especially upon the face of the victim, were the pest ban which shut him out from the aid and from the sympathy of his fellow men. And the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were the incidents of half an hour. But the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and satious. When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to his presence 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knights and dames of his court, and with these retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys. This was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste. A strong and lofty wall girdled it in. This wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress or egress to the sudden impulses of despair or of frenzy from within. The abbey was aptly provisioned with such precautions the courtiers might bid defiance to contagion. The external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasure. There were buffoons, there were improvisators, there were ballet dancers, there were musicians, there was beauty, there was wine. All these in security were within. Without was the Red Death. It was toward the close of the 5th or 6th month of his seclusion, and while the pestilence raged most furiously abroad, that the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence. It was a voluptuous scene, the masquerade, but first let me tell you of the rooms in which it was held. There were 7, an imperial suite. In many palaces, however, such suites form a long and straight vista, while the folding doors slide back nearly to the walls on either hand, so that the view of the whole extent is scarcely impeded. Here the case was very different, as might have been expected from the Duke's love of the bazaar. The apartments were so irregularly disposed that the vision embraced but little more than one at a time. There was a sharp turn at every 20 or 30 yards, and at each turn a novel effect. To the right and left, in the middle of each wall, a tall and narrow Gothic window looked out upon a closed corridor which pursued the windings of the suite. These windows were of stained glass, whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened. That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue, and vividly blue were its windows. The second chamber was purple in its ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the encasements. The fourth was furnished and lightened with orange. The 5th was white, the 6th with violet. The 7th apartment was closed, shrouded in black velvet tapestries that hung all over the ceiling and down the walls, falling in heavy folds upon a carpet of the same material and hue. But in the chamber only, the color of the windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panes here were scarlet, a deep blood color. Now in no one of the 7 apartments was there any lamp or candelabrum. Amid the profusion of golden ornaments that lay scattered to and fro or depended from the roof, there was no light of any emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. but in the corridors that followed the suite there stood opposite to each window a heavy tripod, bearing a brazier of fire that projected its rays through the tinted glass and so glaringly illuminated the room, and thus were produced a multitude of gaudy and fantastic appearances. But in the western or black chamber the effect of the firelight that streamed upon the dark hangings through the blood-tinted panes was ghastly in the extreme, and produced so wild a look upon the countenances of those who entered that there were few of the company bold enough to set foot within its precincts at all. It was in this apartment also that there stood against the western wall a gigantic clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a dull, heavy, monotonous clang. And when the minute hand made the circuit of the face and the hour was to be stricken, there came from the brazen lungs of the clock a sound which was clear and loud and crisp and exceedingly musical, but of so peculiar or note and emphasis that at each lapse of an hour the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily and in their performance to hearken to the sound, and thus the waltzers perforce ceased their evolutions, and there was a brief disconcert of a whole gay company, and while the chimes of the clock yet rang, it was observed that the giddiest grew pale, and the more aged and sedate passed their hands over their brows as if in confused reverie or meditation. But when the echoes had fully ceased, a light laughter at once pervaded the assembly. The musicians looked at each other and smiled, as if at their own nervousness and folly, and made whispering vows each to the other that the next chiming of the clock should produce in them no similar emotion. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embraced 3,600 seconds of the time that flies, there came yet another chiming of the clock, and then were the same disconcert and tumultuous and meditation as before. But, in spite of these things, it was gay and magnificent revel. The tastes of the Duke were peculiar. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. He disregarded the decora of mere fashion. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. His plans were bold and fiery, and his conceptions glowed with barbaric luster. There are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him to be sure he was not. He had directed in great part the movable embellishments of the 7 chambers upon occasion of this great feat, and it was his own guiding taste which had given character to the masqueraders. Be sure they were grotesque. There were much glare and glitter and piquancy and phantasm, much of what has been seen since in Hernani. There were arabesque figures with unsuited limbs and appointments. There were delirious fancies such as the Madame fashions. There were such of the beautiful, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. And these the dreams withered in and about, taking hue from the rooms, and causing the wild music of the orchestra to seem as the echo of their steps. And anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of the velvet, and then for a moment all is still, and all is silent, save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away, they have endured but an instant, and light, half-subdued laughter floats after them as they depart. And now again the music swells, and the dreams live and writhe to and fro more merrily than ever, taking hue from the many-tinted windows through which streams the rays from the tripods. But to the chamber which lies most westwardly of the seven, there are now none of the maskers who venture, for the night is waning away, and there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sable drapery appalls, and to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal, more solemnly emphatic than any which reaches their ears who indulge in the more remote gaieties of the other apartments. But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life, and the revel went whirling on until at length there commenced the sound of midnight upon the clock, and then the music ceased, as I have told, and the evolution of the waltzers were quieted, and there was an uneasy sensation of all things as before. But now there were 12 strokes to the sounded by the bell of the clock, and thus it happened, perhaps, the more of thought crept, with more of time, into the meditations of the thoughtful among those who revelled. And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echoes of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence having spread itself whisperingly around, there arose at length from the whole company a buzz, or murmur, expressive of disapprobation and surprise, then, finally, of terror, of horror, and of disgust, and an assembly of phantasms such as I have painted. It may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in question had outheard Herod, and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion, even with the utterly lost, to whom life and death are equally jests. There are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume and bearing of the stranger neither wit nor propriety existed. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from the head to foot in the habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closet scrutiny must have been difficulty to detecting the cheat. And yet all this might have been endured, if not approved, by the mad revelers around, but the murmur had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad bow with all the features of the face was besprinkled with the scarlet horror. When the eyes of Prince Prospero fell upon this spectral image, with which a slow and solemn movement, as if more fully to sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed in the first moment with a strong shudder, either of terror or distaste, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares," he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, "who dares, insult us with this blasphemous mockery. Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements." It was in the eastern or blue chamber in which stood the Prince Prospero as he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rooms, loudly and clearly, for the prince was a bold and robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first, as he spoke, there was a slight rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and stately step, made closer approach to the speaker, but from a certain nameless awe with which the mad assumptions of the murmur had inspired the whole party, there were found none who put forth hand to seize him, so that unimpeded he passed within a yard of the prince's person, and while the vast assembly, as if with one impulse, shrank from the sentries of the rooms to the walls, he made his way uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green, through the green to the orange, through this again to the white, and even thence to the violet, ere a decided movement had been made to arrest him. It was then, however, that the Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on account of the deadly terror that had seized upon all. He bore aloft drawn dagger, and had approached in rapid impetuosity to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped gleamingly onto the sable carpet, upon which instantly afterwards fell prostrate in death the Prince Prospero. Then, summoning the wild courage of despair, a throng of the revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and seizing the murmurer, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in utterly horror at finding the grave cerements and corpse-like mask which they handled with so violent a rudeness, untenanted by a tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall, and the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. I liked this one. I've never read this one before, at least I don't think so, but some of it seemed kind of familiar. Hello to all the darklings that came in while I was reading, if you're still here. Hello, Omar. Hello, David. How are you, darklings? If anyone else came in and I didn't see you, hello, how are you? I also love reading Edgar Allan Poe. The name of it, but it was about the old man. Yes, The Telltale Heart. I love that one. I think The Telltale Heart might be my actual favorite. Thank you, I'm so glad. I enjoyed reading it. I like it. It's like Michael Jackson's Thriller video. I like that. Hello, Lord Cobra. How are you? Welcome, my darkling. That was great. Thank you, Ira. I'm so glad that you liked it. I quite had fun. Thank you, Brandon. I like this story. It was so good. So good. Let's see if I can find another one that's short. Or maybe we could do some poems. I like that too. Let's see. What else do we got? Oh, this one looks shorter. This sounds interesting as well. The Imp of the Perverse. Has anyone ever read this? Yes, the Telltale Heart. I love that one. I'm feeling great. Thank you for asking me. Thank you, Lord Cobra. How are you, John? Leonard, yes. I bit you last time. We're not doing any feedings this time around. Ah, Hino and Mama Moore and Joker are great. Thank you for asking, Brandon. I'm doing great. I'm honestly feeling good. Yesterday was rough. Getting the Tdap vaccine really made it pretty rough for me. I've been battling it. Thank you, Logan. No, I didn't. It's by Edgar Allan Poe. I have a book here. It's the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe. So that's what we're reading. Yeah, I think the Imp of the Perverse sounds interesting. To be perverse is to be kind of a front to people, but it also could mean that you're kind of perverted. So, I am reading live. Hello, Marco. How are you? Welcome, welcome, my Darkling. Remember, we are doing our devoted Darkling goal here, and our donation goal. Once we reach our goal here, I will do cosplay the cyberpunk vampire ASMR for you guys. Also, make sure to go to my Discord if you haven't already and join the Darkling Coven. That's where I put everything, like all of it. Living in Chicago, people are so loud, but that's where I put all of my announcements for everything when I'm going live, because my times are extremely inconsistent because I work really hard. If someone can put the link for all of like my links, like my Linktree link, I should put my Linktree link in the thingy. I have to figure out if there's a nightbot for YouTube. But if someone could put the Discord link at least in chat, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Cobra. Okay, 261. 261? We're not too far from there. Let's see. Thank you, Neo. Yeah, and then September, I have to get the pneumonia shot, so... Hello, Angel Dust. Welcome, my darling. How are you? Oh, that sounds awesome, Logan. Thank you, Brandon. Put me in a coffin after you bit me last time. You can stay in the coffin and enjoy resting if you'd like, or you can be out here with everyone else. Whichever you would like. Alright. I'm actually not sure what this story is about. Well, we can start reading it, and if it's not good, we can abandon ship. It's that easy. Alright. The Imp of the Perverse by Edgar Allan Poe. Ira, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, yeah. I don't think alerts are working, are they? They are working. How's the volume of alerts this time? I did adjust it and bring it down, so hopefully it's okay. ¿Qué es esto? Diana, a inglés, por favor. Ooh, coffee and rain, that sounds good. Love you too, Kirby, thank you. Alright. That's awesome, Leonard. Alright, here we go. Happy early birthday if I don't remember to wish you a happy birthday, or you're not in my chat. Here we go. The imp of the perverse. In the consideration of the faculties and impulses of the prima mobilia of the human soul, the phrenologists have failed to make room for a propensity which, although obviously existing as a radical, primitive, irreducible sentiment, has been equally overlooked by all the moralists who have preceded them. In the pure arrogance of the reason, we have not overlooked it. We have suffered its existence to escape our senses solely through want of belief, of faith, whether it be faith in revelation or faith in the Kabbalah. The idea of it has never occurred to us simply because of its supererogation. We saw no need of the impulse for the propensity. We could not perceive its necessity. We could not understand that it is to say we could not have understood had the notion of this primum mobile ever obtruded itself. We could not have understood in the manner it might be made to further the objects of humanity, either temporal or external. It cannot be denied that phrenology and in great measure all metaphysicianism have been concocted a priori. The intellectual or logical man, rather than the understanding or observant man, set himself to imagine designs, to dictate purposes to God, having thus fathomed to his satisfaction the intentions of Jehovah. Out of these intentions he built his innumerable system of mind. In the matter of phrenology, for example, we first determined, naturally enough, that it was the design of the deity that man should eat. When then assigned to man an organ of alimentinus, and this organ is the scourge of which the deity compels man, nil I, into eating, secondly having settled into be God's will that the man should continue his species, we discovered an organ of amativeness forthwith, and so with combativeness, with ideality, with casualty, with constructiveness, so, in short, with every organ, whether representing a propensity or moral sentiment, or a faculty of the pure intellect, and in these arrangements of the principia of human action, the spurious mites, whether right or wrong, in part or upon the whole, have but followed in principle the footsteps of the predecessors, deducing and establishing everything from the preconceived destiny of man, and upon the ground of the objects of his Creator. It would have been wiser, it would have been safer to classify, if classify we must, upon the basis of what man usually or occasionally did, and was always occasionally doing, rather than upon the basis of what we took it for granted the deity intended him to do. If we cannot comprehend God in his visible works, how then in his inconceivable thoughts that call the works into being? If we cannot understand him in his objective creatures, how then in the substantive moods and phases of creation? Induction. A posteriori would have been phrenology to admit as an innate and primitive principle of human action a paradoxical something, which we may call perversiveness, for want of a more characteristic term. In the sense I intend, it is a fact, a mobile without motive, a motive without motiverite. Through its promptings we act without comprehensible object, or, if this shall be understood as a contradiction in terms, we may so far modify the proposition as to say that though through its promptings we act for the reason that we should not, in theory no reason can be more unreasonable, but in fact there is none more strong. With certain minds, under certain conditions, it becomes absolutely irresistible. I am not more certain that I breathe, but the assurance of the wrong or error of any action is often the one unconquerable force which impels us, and along impels us to be in prosecution. Nor will this overwhelming tendency to do wrong for wrong's sake admit of analysis or resolution into ulterior elements. It is a radical and primitive impulse, elementary. It will be said, I am aware that when we persist in acts because we feel we should not persist in them, our conduct is but a modification of that which ordinarily springs from the combativeness of phrenology. But a glance will show the fallacy of this idea. The phrenological combativeness has for its essence the necessity of self-defense. It is our safeguard against injury. Its principle regards our well-being, and thus the desire to be well is excited simultaneously with its development. It follows that the desire to be well must be excited simultaneously with any principle which shall be merely a modification of combativeness. But in the case of that something which I term perverseness, the desire to be well is not only not aroused, but a strongly antagonistical sentiment exists. An appeal to know one's own heart is after all the best reply to the sophistry just noticed. No one who trustingly consults and thoroughly questions his own soul will be disposed to deny the entire radicalness of the propensity in question. It is not more incomprehensible than distinctive. There lies no man who at some period has not been tormented, for example, by an earnest desire to tantalize a listener by circumlocution. The speaker is aware and that he displeases. He has every intention to please. He is usually curt, precise, and clear, and most laconic and luminous language is struggling for utterance upon his tongue. It is only with difficulty that he restrains himself from giving it flow. He dreads and depreciates the anger of within him whom he addresses, yet the thought strikes him that by certain involutions and parentheses this anger may be endangered. That single thought is enough. The impulse increases to a wish, the wish to a desire, the desire to an uncontrollable longing, and the longing to the deep regret and mortification of the speaker, and in defiance of all consequences, is indulged. We have a task before us which must be speedily performed. We know that it will be ruinous to make delay. The most important crisis of our life calls, trumpet-tongued, for immediate energy and action. We glow, we are consumed with eagerness to commence the work with the anticipation of whose glorious result our whole souls are in fire. It shall be undertaken today, and yet we put it off until tomorrow. And why? There is no answer except that we feel perverse, using the word with no comprehension of the principle. Tomorrow arrives, and with it a mere impatient anxiety to do our duty. But with this very increase of anxiety arrives also a nameless, positively fearful, because unfathomable, craving for delay. This craving gathers strength as the moments fly. The last hour for action is at hand. We tremble with the violence of the conflict within us, of the definite with the indefinite, of the substance with the shadow. But in the contest have proceeded thus far, it is the shadow which prevails. We struggle in vain. The clock strikes, and in the knell of our welfare at the same time, it is the chancellor note to the ghost that has long overawed us. It flies, it disappears. We are free. The old energy returns. We will labor now. Alas, it is too late. Thank you so much, Alec. I notice you Senpai notices you. Hello, how are you? Hello, Jonathan. Thank you for all the support. We still have this little paragraph at the bottom. 2 more pages to go. And then we're done with this story. And then we'll probably be done with ASMR on YouTube for now. We're halfway to our goal! Yay! Alright, darklings, let's finish our story, shall we? And Jonathan, Nguyen, remember how to pronounce your last name. Okay, now I'll read. Anna. Alright. We stand upon the brink of a precipice. We peer into the abyss. We grow sick and dizzy. Our first impulse is to shrink from the danger. Unaccountably we remain. But slow degrees our sickness and dizziness and horror become merged in a cloud of unnameable feeling. By gradations still more imperceptible, this cloud assumes shape as did the vapor from the bottle out of which arose the genius in the Arabian Nights. But out of this our cloud upon the precipice's edge, there grows its papality, a shape far more terrible than any genius or any demon of any tale, and yet it is but a thought, although a fearful one, and one which chills the very marrow of our bones, and the fierceness of the delight of its horror. It is merely the idea of what would be our sensations during the sweeping precipitancy of a fall from such a height, and this fall, this rushing annihilation, for the very reason that it involves that one most ghastly and loathsome of all the most ghastly and loathsome images of death and suffering which have ever presented themselves to our imagination. For this very cause do we now the most vividly desire, and because our reason violently deters us from the brink, therefore do we the most impetuously approach it. There is no passion in nature so demonically impatient as that of him who, shuddering upon the edge of precipice, thus meditates a plunge. To indulge for a moment in any attempt at thought is to be inevitably lost, for reflection but urges us to forbear, and therefore it is, I say, that we cannot. If there be no friendly arm to check us, or if we fail in a sudden effort to prostrate ourselves backward from the abyss, we plunge and are destroyed. Examine these and similar actions as we will, we shall find them resulting solely from the spirit of the perverse. We perpetuate them merely because we feel that we should not. Beyond or behind there is no intelligible principle, and we might indeed deem this perverseness a direct ingestation of the arch-fiend, were it not occasionally known to operate in furtherance of good. I have said thus much that in some measure I may answer your question, that I may explain to you why I am here, that I may assign to you something that shall have at least the faint aspect of a cause for my wearing these fetters, and for my tenanting this cell of the condemned. Had I not been thus prolix, you might either have misunderstood me altogether, or with the rabble have fancied me mad. As it is, you will easily perceive that I am one of the many uncounted victims of the imp of the perverse. It is impossible that any deed could have been wrought with a more thorough deliberation. For weeks, for months, I pondered upon the meanings of the murder. I rejected 1,000 schemes because their accomplishment involved a chance of detection. At length, in reading some French memoirs, I found an account of a nearly fatal illness that occurred and Madame Pilou. Through the urgency of a candle accidentally poisoned, the idea struck my fancy at once. I knew my victim's habit of reading in bed. I knew, too, that his apartment was narrow and ill-ventilated. But I need not vex you with impertinent details. I need not describe the easy artifices by which I subdued in his bedroom candle-stand a wax light of my own making for the one which I there found. The next morning he was discovered dead in his bed, and the coroner's verdict was death by the visitation of God. Having inherited his estate, all went well with me for years. The idea of detection never once entered my brain. Of the remains of the fatal taper I had myself carefully disposed. I had left no shadow of a clue by which it would be possible to convict, or even to suspect, me of the crime. It is inconceivable how rich a sentiment of satisfaction arose in my bosom, so as I reflected upon my absolute security. For a very long period of time I was accustomed to revel in this sentiment. It afforded me more real delight than all the mere worldly advantages accruing from my sin. But there arrived at length an epoch from which the pleasurable feeling grew, by scarcely perceptible gradations, into a haunting and harassing thought. It harassed me because it haunted. I could scarcely get rid of it for an instant. It is quite a common thing to be thus annoyed with the ringing in our ears, or rather in our memories, of the burden of some ordinary song, or some unimpressive snatches from an opera. Nor will we be the less tormented if the song in itself be good, or the opera air meritorious. In this manner, at last, I would perpetually catch myself pondering upon my security, and repeating in a low undertone the phrase, "I am safe, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe." One day, while sauntering along the streets, I arrested myself in the act of murmuring, half aloud, these customary syllables in a fit of perpetulance. I remodeled them thus: I am safe, I am safe, yes, if I be not fool enough to make upon confession, I am safe. No sooner had I spoken these words than I felt an icy chill creep to my heart. I had had some experience in these fits of perversity, whose nature I have been at some trouble to explain, and I remembered well that in no instance I had successfully resisted their attacks, and now my own casual self-suggestion that I might possibly be fool enough to confess the murder of which I had been guilty confronted me, and if the very ghost of him whom I had murdered and beckoned me on to death. At first I made an effort to shake off this nightmare of the soul. I walked vigorously, faster, still faster. At length I ran. I felt a maddening desire to shriek aloud. Every succeeding wave of thought overwhelmed me with new terror, or alas, I too well understood that to think in my situation was to be lost. I still quickened my pace. I bounded like a madman through the crowded thoroughfares. At length the populace took the alarm and pursued me. I felt then the consummation of my fate. Could I have torn out my tongue? I would have done it, but a rough voice resounded in my ears. A rougher grasp seized me by the shoulder. I turned. I gasped for breath. For a moment I experienced all the pangs of suffocation. I became blind and deaf and giddy, and then some invisible fiend, I thought, struck me with his broad palm upon my back. The long-imprisoned secret burst forth from my soul. They say that I spoke with a distinct enunciation, but with marked emphasis and passionate hurry, as if in dread of intrepidation. interruption before concluding the brief but pregnant sentences that consigned me to the hangman and to hell. Having related all that was necessary for the fullest judicial conviction, I fell prostrate in a swoon. But why shall I say more? Today I wear these chains and am here. Tomorrow I shall be fearless. But where? The end. Yes, Eddie Munson cosplay will be tomorrow. Without a hitch. We will be doing karaoke. I have a Stranger Things dice game all set up for us to play, and then we'll play Amnesia, and then I don't think we're gonna have time to play Fall Guys, so we'll definitely do Amnesia. ASMR stream on YouTube will be ending here. If you would like to play some Fall Guys with me, make sure to go over to Twitch right after this. First, I'm going to set up this real fast, so it'll be in like 10 minutes, and we will play the Fall Guys. At least for a little bit, like a half hour, maybe an hour if I want to keep playing, but I'm getting hungry, of course. Thank you so much, my darklings, for being here. Thank you, Neo, I appreciate it. I haven't read that one either before. I also liked it. I wasn't sure where we were going. We were definitely talking about the imp of the perverse, which means kind of like those thoughts, the intruding thoughts we randomly have that stick in our head, but we have, you know, our own, like it's like in ego, we have our own feelings that tell us, no, don't do that, that's not right, don't kill people. But the imp of the perverse is a feeling that creeps into your brain, perverts your mind, and it makes you want to do terrible things. Not always terrible, but in this instance it was a terrible thing, and I thought it was so good. So once I realized where this was going, because it kind of started off really slow, it was a slow burn, then I was able to get into the acting because we killed somebody. Well, you guys are so awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed the story. I really love reading stories. I haven't in a long time. I really love storytelling. There are other things too besides like Dracula. I don't know if you guys are even enjoying Dracula or not, but we've got more of this. There's other things I can look into for us to do. Hello, Marco. Hello. Yes, I will be going to Twitch. Hey. That actually wasn't late. Thank you. We're getting closer and closer to our goal. I keep on wanting to point to the wrong side. Yeah, me too. Because it just kind of was explaining about like man and what our deity wants us to do. So, I love you, 9002. Do you watch Power Rangers? No, I don't. I used to way back in the day. I loved the Pink Ranger, the Yellow Ranger, the Red Ranger, and the White Ranger. Yeah, Dracula is good, but I feel like it's just so long that we never get there, because I would have to do like consistent readings for like a couple weeks probably, if not more than weeks, months, so for us to get through it. I'll see if I feel like we need some, like, especially since we're getting close to Halloween, we need some non-copyrighted short horror ghost stories. If you guys know of any, make sure to put them in the Discord. Sorry. Put them in the Discord. Yes, the alarm is fixed. It's not super loud now. Yay. Alright, my darklings. Yay, I'm glad you loved this. I did too. Is it a vampire episode? Oh, really? Force called Stranger? Oh, interesting. That sounds very interesting. Huh. Are the vampires the bad guys? I had recently started Buffy from the beginning. You definitely down for some Fall Guys? Yes, I like it. Alright. I love you all so much. Thank you for such an amazing stream on here. Make sure to join me on Twitch in about 10-15 minutes. Probably won't, I don't think it'll take me 15 minutes, but make sure to join me. If it wasn't loud, don't worry. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad the story was good. Yeah, I think we actually read 2 really good stories today. Like I said, the second one kind of started off kind of but it was good. Join the Discord so that you know all of the announcements and things that are happening. We're doing Eddie Munson stream tomorrow on Twitch. I think that's about it. I love Buffy. Alright, I love you guys so very much.